mentioned, the biggest losers of Game 1 were the fans that fell asleep and did not watch the series, assuming that Griffin would take another 2-0 victory. Ruler pulls out the last pick Vayne and says, hello, I'm here in the late game and I'm going to take you out, and that he did. GenG up 1-0 over Griffin, who only took their third game loss of the entire series in that last one.
And Valdez, we're all shook. I think everyone watching this series and probably playing in this series is legit shook. Everyone is feeling like the goosebumps are there for a reason. Anything could happen in this series between GenG and Griffin. And it's probably too late in the season to rescue GenG to playoffs, but they want to get out of a relegation predicament. It's a long year, and they want to get back to Worlds. We know all about their Gauntlet buff, but they didn't look like a team that was going to even qualify for the Gauntlet for the majority of this year. Not since the Kesper Cup final against Griffin all the way back at the end of December on New Year's Eve did GenG look good this year. Because that was last year, right? That was the last day of last year. This year, they've had nothing. It'd be such a big moral victory, but also such a lot of momentum. They could find a series victory against Griffin. They're getting greedy. They got the one game. Now they want more. Game number 2, you'll notice Griffin say, all right, this 1v9 stuff is too real. Yeah. And they start banning out anything they can.
They still ban out LeBlanc, though, so they're giving Fly at least a little bit of respect here.
Which is so weird. Yes, he's been playing it in solo queue, but it's never been a Fly champion. Also, if they want to run Corki back, which I guarantee they don't want to, it's a good matchup into LeBlanc. You can go Hex Drinker and be fine in this matchup. I was a really big, I was going to say not a fan, but hater, let's say, of the Corki pick from Griffin, because I talked about this in a VOD review. Griffin win from having a CS and pressure advantage through mid, and then being able to back up a jungler, just take over the map through that. Tarzan plus Chovy at 15 minutes, almost always getting a red buff, getting a Rift Tail, getting a Drake, and not losing out on it. I want to see an impact mid laner. Now, does it need to be the Galio, which it could still be flexed on the side of Griffin? The answer to that question is no, but that is something I want to see. Something with agency, not a Corki who only provides damage.
Would have to agree, as Griffin say, well, the Galio Lucian bot lane wasn't the problem. We're going to bring that back here. Although they weren't able to push the turret into the Vayne and get that one first. I believe Vayne actually got that turret in the bottom side first. Partially because Lehends was doing a ton of roaming, and do we see it early? Yes, he will, as it was going to be bad in the second phase. He's going for it again, guys.
Do you remember, I'm not going to talk about the 23rd of September here, no joke reference here, but do you remember the fact that Griffin's losses in their debut split of summer was a lot of letting things slide a second time? A lot of, this funnel Lucian, let's do it again.
Trying it again, yeah.
They could have banned Vayne very easily. I think giving LeBlanc to GenG does nothing. I think gives them nothing, because it's not a pick they've shown any aptitude on.
Chovy can play Zoe versus
Zoe was the obvious
LeBlanc.
thing to go here. This is the adjustment I was going to predict, but I'm more interested in the past point, because it does seem like Griffin are just sticking with something stubbornly. This is what I wanted to see. Drop the Corki, go Zoe. Good matchup into Lissandra. The picks you can get with this are much more reliable than just having a damage dealer mid. Obviously, they would prefer to go Aurelia because you can take over a side lane. Turns out, you can't have everything you want. You already lost to GenG, so there aren't going to be big adjustments. You take the Zoe, we like that. This will be a different game. But the cost is still a Vayne, who, yes, if she falls behind, gets killed in Trouble Bubble and maybe even just the passive, let alone the Paddle Star. But the best case scenario, we already saw in game number 1.
It's very true. And what else is Griffin going to mix up here? They ended up taking Rise as well as the, I'm trying to look here, the Nocturne as the last 2 picks for jungle and top in game number 1. Already a bunch of jungle and top champions going to be banned out here. Olaf and Jarvan, that's going to be another mix-up. They're going to deny that away from Peanut.
Last pick jungle is our heavy expectation. That is how Griffin roll usually on the red side. Aatrox, their usual blind jungler, it's banned. So it'd be a change from them that we'd have to think about if it wasn't last pick jungle. Still, of course, could be something else. We're going to wait and see what Griffin want to approach. I want GenG to not allow themselves to fall behind on priority top. They really would love to get a priority laner, and that's the only reason you would take jungle here, is that you'd be scared of losing the priority top. The reason why I say that is it's Vayne. And of course, Vayne can go really bad in the early game when it comes to having any sort of relevance. The game gallops past her. She's kind of left in the dust, even with 2 items. So you would want something strong into the Rise. It's probably just going to be Nico again. They're rolling back almost everything on the side of GenG. Now, Hecarim top and Hecarim jungle can be considered. And it's strong against Zoe because you just dive in and she's going to be unable to actually choose her target. But I think it's too bold for professional play. Solo queue, it's actually really strong. So blind jungle pick for Peanut. Lee Sin is up. I think you just take Lee Sin here. It's the safest choice.
Zach's another one for him.
But that is a wait-and-see champion, and you already have a wait-and-see AD carry, and what if Zach gets invaded like so many Zachs have historically, and Vayne never gets her items? That's the worry I see. What will the jungle choice be from Tarzan? He can go physical or magic damage jungler here. Physical would actually be a bit more prioritized because they have a lot of magic damage, but he wants to punish. What is his punishment choice? It's the most punishment choice. He's going Xin Zhao. He's saying this game ends before 3-item Vayne.
Yeah. Tarzan taking things into his own hands, saying, I'm going to be the one to speed this game up a little bit, like the choice with that last pick jungle.
Like the Nico, and that was what I was focusing on, don't lose priority top, but then they went for the least priority or the least presence jungler around it, and that is bold, because now it was a very obvious target. They got a lot out of last pick jungle. If you take Lee Sin as the pick on the blue side, then Griffin say, Rek'Sai's got the good matchup, we could get that. But now it's, I'm waiting for late game teamfight jungler versus I'm going to attack you as much as possible. This is the most bold choice they could have taken. And they don't play a lot of Xin Zhao to Griffin, even when it was in the middle of the meta. So this is bold and then some choice coming through when it comes to jungle picks, but it also is a fallback champion for Peanut. He wants to find some confidence, and he has had a lot of good performances historically on the Zach.
Certainly he has, and maybe just hoping that Griffin once again kind of lulled themselves to sleep, but very hard to do that when you have a Xin Zhao, and Tarzan's not a guy to pick Xin Zhao and then say, yeah, I'm just going to sit back and farm. That doesn't sound like something Tarzan would actually do, so Griffin here want to make a statement and get in the face of GenG this time around.
But this is the epitome of what we think of as Patch 9. The Patch 9 cycle, the 2019 meta. They have a comp that hits super hard. They have pick CC in all 3 lanes and a way earlier power spike when it comes to both their AD carry and their jungler. This comp should annihilate GenG pre-30. But the what if for GenG fans is if they look up and it reads 35 minutes, something's gone really right. I think I heard
feels like
some desperation there.
Yeah, just a little bit from the fans on the side of Griffin, really trying to rile everybody up. As, of course, we're on the Griffin side this time around, as Griffin are on red, and so are the English casters on the red side here.
GenG was able to get desperation out of the Griffin fans. That's something that has happened. Timestamp it. It happened in this series, and it was so well deserved. And Griffin responded by, honestly, doing nothing when it comes to the change. They still ban LeBlanc, left the Vayne up. It's a first-round Vayne, but they just lost to it, right? And then Lissandra was left open. Of course it will be first picked from the side of GenG, and you might say, yes, Zoe has a good matchup, but also Fly doesn't have fallback champion. These are the things that I always get on my VOD reviews is things happen, and it's easy to blow them off on surface-level thoughts, but if you go deeper, you're like, but wait, they didn't actually have anything else, and yet they got to play what they've shown they can play. And now, yes, GenG have gone even further and have gone for a very obvious, this comp in the early game is going to be in a super, super struggle. But the what if is out there, and we know the what if is real. We're not lying to you. GenG could win this series.
Certainly could happen. It's going to be on the back of Ruler once again. Seems like he's very comfortable in this position, going for the Vayne. Once again, he will. As you can see so far already, Chovy trying to lay down some wards and get some more information on that Zach so they can begin to put on the pressure in the bottom, or in the jungle.
In case you were wondering, CuVee was just trying to fish for there being some sort of deep vision there, just opening up on a champion that is the Vayne, of course, in the disguise of Nico and just trying to play the mind games on the enemy. My favorite mind game with Nico is level 1, copying your jungler and then trying to show that the jungler is starting top or invading when in fact he's not. But also have to respect the crazy power of Galio level 1, just like a Braum level 1. You can't just rush into a brush as Nico impersonating Zac. He could still be turned on. So because of that, we're going to watch the pathing from Tarzan. Remember, Tarzan's job this game is to win it himself. And you know what? He's had some games like that recently, as we know. But Xin Zhao goes hard or goes home, and that is, in fact, the storyline of this game. Peanut is just saying, how many camps can I get? And so far, the answer is going to be 3, as he's going for the safe level 3 of red buff, Raptors. He doesn't go for the full bot side clear, which is how he's been able to play this before. And now he can actually power farm top side. And he will now get the confirmation that the Xin Zhao won't be punishing him. This, of course, was a very common path, was starting Wolves and then power farming Blue and the Gromp at the same time. It's because with Smite, you can take down both camps and leash both of them, and you don't get a reset on them. And this was something that junglers grew to always counter jungle on if they expected it.
Yeah.
This path is a very unexplored one. I have not seen red Krugs into top full clear, leave Raptors up. But it's also Xin Zhao, whose Raptor clear is not, say, Kayn levels of speed. So I think it's actually very smart by Peanut.
The other small point was that I'm not sure if GenG saw it, but there was a ward on the blue Raptors. And Griffin actually, pinged the Raptors and said, hey, he didn't do Raptors. That's a little bit weird. So,
but then Xin Zhao didn't invade blue. And that's a disconnect, right? Because if he's not at Raptors, he's definitely power farming blue and Gromp. This is not dark techniques. This is a very known power farm thing that you can do with specifically Zac and 1 or 2 other AoE junglers.
Yeah, and that means that Peanut, outside of the 2 scuttles that he was never going to get against Xin Zhao, he's going to get everything pretty much. Unless Chovy can steal this, which he's not going to. Peanut having a very nice time here in the early game.
Xin Zhao's Zoe, remember, as well. And Zoe has faster ability to respond with certain trouble bubbles. Now, this is not game over, because remember, they should know pretty much now, camp for camp, the order that Peanut took. So contesting at the respawn is still an opportunity for 2-3 points in the W Xin Zhao to return to. So we'll see where the lane priorities are when those respawns come in. Krugs comes in, and even just Peanut getting 2 rounds of Krugs is more than he probably should be getting. So I would say, big advantage GenG so far, even if you look at the top and say, Pop Smithy, it's 200 gold lead to Griffin. Think about how this game could have gone and how it probably should have gone with Griffin's draft.
Going for the Krugs right away means that definitely one of the harder camps for the Xin Zhao to get all the way into that jungle and contest on in there. And as you mentioned, he's going to want to contest eventually, but where are you going to go? I guess suppose the next time will have to be the next blue buff. We'll see if they do make some plays around that buff.
So it's out of mana. Looking for a recall timing here, so no excitement there. Well, for once I'm not tilted by Redemption mid lane. Didn't look like the biggest one ever from Zoe.
Good for wave clear. Get the Chovy Zoe out on the map too.
Here we go. So, they're invading, but the timing is off.
They're late.
The observers here showing that it's back to the full top clear. Very surprising that Griffin seemed pretty unsure about things, but invading at that timing does give them the kind of temporary control ward that is the Ghost Burrow. They're going to get a Mountain Drake, not something that GenG can be stoked about, but they should feel really good that the farm is so healthy on the Zac. We've seen so many games, both with Peanut in them and not, that have gone very differently.
The only thing they really could have hoped for was a worse Drake, perhaps. It's going to be Mountain into Mountain, which, again, is going to be pretty nice for Lucian Rise, at least. Peanut really hoping for a play up in the top side, especially with CuVee here at level 6, but will not happen. And now it's the Zac invading the Xin Zhao.
Peanut's pathing. Again, it's been a thing to lament, thing to make fun of in 2019.
Perfect timing here.
But this is really good pathing from him. Raptors is not a camp. AoE camps is not Xin Zhao's bread and butter. Yes, he can do them with points in his W, but it's not what he falls back on. He doesn't get the Krog steal, but he does get a nice camp steal, so couple of camps behind. I imagine that's because 3 scuttles. It's kind of 3 scuttles down on the enemy, but otherwise, everything's going fine for Peanut. And by the first time he meets the enemy jungler, he'll have another nope button in his ultimate to potentially be used to skip over a wall and not give up an early kill.
Chovy here with the cleanse is going to be pretty safe up against any shenanigans that, you know, level 6 Zach and Lissandra can do. Trying to look for any other lane that they could go into and potentially get a gank off on.
So we called out
would be hard.
GenG's comp early game and the fact that Griffin really drafted against it, but that's an on-paper analysis point. We look at this game and say, actually early game was Vayne going CS for CS with Lucian and Zach doing way better than expected. So that means that that analysis is now garbage. It's thrown out. Doesn't matter. The early game went way better for GenG. So let's talk about the Zach pick and what it does provide. GenG, just like the previous game, have Vayne and Nico. 3-4 items. Those are gods of damage in an AoE on the Nico. Much more single target on the side of CuVee. And then they have multiple nope buttons and temporary tankinesses and zones for ruler to hard carry.
Here we go.
And then moments like this.
Lands the E and Sword. Doesn't look like CuVee wants to overcommit to that one. Also, a little bit cautious about that Rise damage, but a pretty good trade as Sword is out of mana with no TP. CuVee going to take the lead in this lane.
This looks like a game where GenG hard win as the game goes on, Valdez, in a big, big way. Consider what happens here as it goes on. His rule is just going to be fake up top, still CuVee. The fact that the name bar changes and I default to using that as a little warning there is annoying. But he gets a turret play in the matchup. But Valdez, how do you get to Vayne when Lissandra self-ults, Zach as a champion has so much AoE threat, CuVee has the self-ult as well, or just the Pop Blossom in general, and Braum is disengaged as well. They don't have a lot of hard engage, because Zach kind of wants to get in but also peel, but they also have engage at times, and if they get first to a Baron like they did in game number 1, this could actually be some real warning signs for Griffin.
You don't want to lose your first series to GenG. Nothing against GenG, but they're in 9th place right now. If you were going to lose the series, SKT, that would have been a good one to lose. Maybe even, you know, drop an extra game to Sandbox or something like that. But up against GenG, that would not be a good look. You know, maybe they were over-preparing for the SKT series, came in here a little bit sleepy, and GenG just have their day. Would be a really nice story if they could actually pull this off.
I think it would say a lot about Griffin, though, because GenG had their game. Game number 1, yes, you can be surprised by things, but there's no surprise by their second game. That means that Griffin need to punish it, otherwise they were problems of their own creation.
Life going to be slept up here. Here comes Lehends, but immediately dropped into the wall as Ruler says no. The zone version of the no button gets that Galio away.
This series could easily have been, all right, GenG, we see what you did, ban, ban, ban. That's not what happened in this game number 2.
Yeah.
So that's the part that's different here, and that's the sort of thing that other teams could potentially prey on. The VOD review from CB Max already confirmed to be a loud one, where he gets furious.
Yeah, certainly a spicy one.
2 points into Tumble is something to mention. W Max for Vayne ever since the changes where Tumble having the shorter cooldown early meant that putting extra points in it was less necessary. Means that Silver Vault's max almost always a thing. Just for a little bit more skipping around. And speaking of skipping around.
Oh, baiting that one. Just that small step forward, and you could see immediately the trigger pulled here for Peanut. They already get the flash away from Chovy now.
If I'm on stream, I pause and I tell my stream, the first defensive flash was blown by GenG and not by Griffin. When you look at these team comps and the earliest power spike, just the fact that Zach got a flash before Xin is a critical problem.
Yeah. It's very true. I mean, at least in game number 1 as well, like the Nocturne was doing stuff in the mid-game, made a lot of those team fights go in Griffin's favor, but Xin Zhao was here to put a stop to the early game jungling of the Zach, did not do that. And if we get to 20, 25 minutes, what exactly is Tarzan going to be able to do on this pick?
Die.
Is another question. That's what you would assume, right? Die a lot and do a lot of nothing. And now, well, CuVee is looking for this play. Gets the knock up here. CuVee in a bit of trouble, but nice flash over the wall. Here comes Sword, though. Pop Blossom gonna save him for now, as the Q does miss. But finally, First Blood does come in, as finally Tarzan finds a kill.
I needed one for sure on the side of Griffin. Very hard for CuVee to do anything there. I like the ability to go over the wall. He gets 2 for 1 in flashes, but no more. Speaking of flashes, see that Zach is opening up, kind of waiting on threats. You couldn't really commit more numbers because they weren't close enough, and remember, Galio would get first roam top side, so It wasn't inevitability of a death, but the Rift Herald inevitability, that's not necessarily there.
Peanut runs straight at Xinjiao, is going to be able to hop away here, but the TP comes in from the Nico. They're going to engage on the Chovy. They get that ultimate off the cleanse, already used. Can they take him out? Yes, they can. As Zach in the passive, can he get away? Fly here, out of mana too. Peanut will be going down, and now CuVee and Life are on the run here.
Where are they going,
get
though?
Away.
They can't get to the blast plant.
Looks like Life
going to,
gonna try to get out of this one, but Tarzan will have his number.
That's not the right ruse, he's dead. They know he's dead. But
yeah.
Peanut, now it's Peanut. Who's next on the escape? The little Zach's so cute.
Yeah.
Aww.
I want to hear him attack something. The audio is funny too, but he does get away. Does the Nico as, well, they stopped the Rift Herald at least, and that would have been great timing for Tarzan to get a kill, to get the Rift Herald and get some plates, but he only gets the kill in the end.
So, confirmation, of course, is gotten most easily by doing damage to Nico, and it was pretty obvious that CuVee was there. They take down the kill. You can't send more resources, A, because they're not close enough, and if you TP in, Galio comes in first and you die. So that was the start. That was the 1 for 0. A little bit later, but still present. Peanut walks too far up here, but doesn't die. So this could have just been the end of proceedings, and a 1 for 0 is going to be the most, but the Rift Herald was what they were fighting for in the biggest possible way. It's why Peanut was still around. The 1 for 1 is pretty decent, and the Rift Herald doesn't go down.
Yeah.
So do consider it's 2 for 1, but not a Rift Herald. So for the scaling team, it's not an ultra disaster that a 3 for 1 would represent. And if you go 1 for 1 when you have outscale, it's just pure advantage to GenG. So overall, it sucks, but it could have sucked way more.
Can they get the Lucian here? Viper just flashes away from that one. Looked like he didn't have his dash available. And so Peanut just hanging around the map, getting flashes all around the place as Fly going to be out-traded as Griffin look down the barrel of their second Mountain Drake.
Definitely a frustration, because this is a Drake that provides a lot of invisible power when all the clear power was with GenG as the game goes on. Now their setups around Baron and Elder Dragon will be more relevant because you got to be there 20 seconds earlier, or you're so scared of the speed at which even just Xinjiao and Lucian are going to be unleashing damage. And if Ryze and Zoe can use their mana bar on the Baron or the Elder Dragon, they will do some scary things too. Third Drake, which is closer to GenG being online, is a Cloud, which will be a bit lower in terms of priority, but still relevant. We already know about how much kiting Ruler's going to be needing to do, so some combat movement speed could come in stat.
Wouldn't be half bad, as we always got to keep our eye on the bottom lane here, on the Vayne lane, if you will. As Ruler, once again, 0-0-0 is not half bad, especially if you're going even in CS with the Lucian, who's a big lane bully. So things going well, at least in the early game, the first 15 minutes for the Vayne.
It's all happening, Valdez. It's all happening here in this game number 2. It's a fun one between the teams of Griffin and GenG. Early game going nice and quiet. Griffin already had one go at this Drake. And the Rift Herald respawns, and it seems like GenG, they're not in position to contest. They know their scaling is later, so while you never feel great about this trade, you take any trades that are close to 50-50, so GenG take the gold around all.
There's no more plates anymore, so Tarzan can't really push that one in. And take a look at who has more plates in this game. It's actually GenG, 2 of them in the top lane, going over to CuVee. And just 1 in the bottom side, actually, on the Vayne lane. So really nice there for GenG to get ahead in terms of that gold. Of course, the gold lead does go the way of Griffin overall, but it is still a small one here, only about 700-800.
And a good indicator that the early game comp didn't really hit where they wanted to hit. Because if you have as many advantages as Griffin had stacked up, you would assume you could also put in at least a 3 or 4 turret plate lead. So turret plate disadvantage means this game is much more honest at 16 minutes than otherwise should have been possible.
Definitely is true. Peanut stays alive up against that Xinjiao, and I liked what he was doing on the Jarvan, especially in the late game. He kind of just threw his face into the pile. He was like, well, all I have to do is have that temporary tankiness you were talking about. Just ult the front line, make the Ryze, the Corki attack me, while Ruler sits in the back and takes away a lot of that damage as nobody's really attacking him.
Know your role is an important thing as a jungler, and Peanut probably came in much more bullish about how aggressive he could play on the GenG lineup to address some of the old issues this lineup has always had, and that didn't work out. But you're right, he knew his role there, and now he's on Zac duty, and it's a very similar champ, but even better on the amount of tankiness in a team fight. He's gotten away, and his smart pathing just as a player has opened up a pretty even jungle matchup, and he's feeling good about where the game's going, so hats off to Peanut. An adjustment in play style, but it's been an effective one.
2-on-2 here in the river. Peanut not going to opt into that trade. Still down a level on the Xin Zhao, who's 2-0-1. 100% kill participation so far for Tarzan, even if it took him a little while to get things going.
Ruler nice and bold, happy to just tumble into Galio. He has cleanse, which hasn't cost him in the lane trades, and Lucian actually has heal this game. Remember last game against a similar duo, might have been the same duo, I forget. It was the teleport, and we saw the Galio just straight up die.
Same duos.
And it was same duos, so got the confirmation on the support there. Now he adjusts to heal, but isn't getting a CS lead from going for a combat summoner, so he has less utility in terms of the 2v2.
Oh, here we go. They're going to find Viper, and that should be a death and knockup from the Braum on the two of them. And Ruler's going to get the one kill. Really nicely played by GenG to get things going on their vein.
No siding on the Zac, able to get in there and take down the kill, and it goes the side of GenG. They're looking for more here, but Lehends can punish.
Oh, really nice taunt on a 3. Here comes Tarzan, but he is stunned up. Might be able to get life here. He does. Peanut on the escape.
Chovy.
Can Chovy actually do it? Is going to miss that one and will not try to follow up, but they get the one kill into a push in the top lane.
Flashes are used. CuVee had his teleport, but is called away from it. Fly also does not teleport topside. It was hunting season for Griffin. They're not going to find as many kills they want, but they do stop the advance of Ruler.
They do for now, and let's see how much damage they can get on this top side too. It looks like one more charge. Peanut hanging around here. See if they do engage onto this one. No knock up there, but a bit of damage goes out, and they do save that turret in the end.
Outnumbering the GenG duo allows them to curtail the amount of free gold that's piled onto Ruler. He can't wave clear in an outnumbered scenario or even scenario. If Rift Herald is there, he provides almost nothing when it comes to stopping its advance, so they make it a very long top lane for GenG. Definitely allows them to get a lot of Baron vision in this case. You were pointing out that QSS is taken for a bit more insurance here. Nice opening on the play as level 9 has been hit, so Peanut is able to come from interesting angles. But I like how Griffin further played this. Put all your tools into stopping Ruler from getting turret kills, from getting any further gold involvement in the early game, and delaying the time that he has 2 items in his combat ready.
Really love what Peanut does there on the escape. Actually saves Ruler, but I'm going to hold that thought here as the Cloud Drake. They're really committing to this one. In goes Tarzan, though, looking for the steal. He's not going to get it. They get the stun here onto the Xin Zhao, too. Nice little stopwatch. In goes Chovy, trying to hit some targets. Can't quite do it. CuVee and Ruler still alive in this one. Haven't found a kill just yet. A sword with a massive shield, but he is going to go down in the end as Ruler will pick up the kill on the backside.
Snowball QSS gets him the first kill, and you see a preview of how fights will go before the items are there for GenG. Their bark, it's pretty scary, but the bite isn't there yet for GenG. They need 2-3 damage items on Nico and Vayne. But the spacings, how the fight played out, is a preview, and they even get that kill to further accelerate Ruler, whose 550 gold bounty keeps stacking up. Watch the replay here, and remember what we've said. Zac, Lissandra, Braum are about building space for Nico and Vayne to do damage. Only Blade is done on both these carries, no Rage Blades. They will want fights where their tanks can allow them to stack Rage Blade, and the moment Rage Blade is stacked, they just unleash godly damage. They are, in fact, the Shinigamis we talked about in game number 1. Not yet, though. They're still in training, but I think that training might take, and if it takes to the fullest extent, Griffin gonna have a lot of pain to consider.
We take a look at some of the damage in the last team fight. You see that Nico not quite up there just yet, as Sword was trying to go 1v5 towards the end, did a lot of bouncing damage, but more importantly, Vayne, after that fight, I saw she's ahead by 1,300 gold already over the Lucian. It's pretty insane, and what costs around 1,300 gold, Papa? You're pointing at it. It's the QSS. She already has cleanse, but she wanted another one.
And it's the nightmare scenario for any first-time Vayne of cleanse and QSS. So you got to press your actives while tumbling off cooldown. But in Ruler we trust is the GenG way. This is how this team plays. He's got the ability to outplay Ryze and Zoe in a team fight, which is just not how the champions usually stack up. Now, Brittle behind him will still take the damage impacts, but if those tanks are on point, and those Captain Jack QSSs are on point as well, with 2 of them and hitting your damage on time, that sounds like a Ruler carry to me.
That it does. A bit of extra MR as well. Didn't take it in game 1, even though Corki does mostly magic damage anyway, but there's still a ton of magic damage, especially with Ryze and Zoe this time around. So.
The adjustment is, think of what we've said about the Zoe LeBlanc mid lane matchup of, well, if you hit the bubble, you win it, therefore it's better for Zoe because of where it's going. Zoe and Ryze both have buttons that erase a Vayne from a team fight. And you've got an ability for both of those. And yes, you'll take some damage behind it, but if everyone else is fulfilling their role, he now has an answer to the increasing threat. QSS does nothing against Corki. You just die 0.1 seconds slower. It does a lot against what Zoe provides, so I do like the adaptation.
And he has so much gold now that he does finish his Rage Blade anyway at around 23 minutes. Here we go, as Nico, once again, a little bit behind as it was in game number 1, but she's slowly making her way towards that item, and as I say that, she completes it on her back.
I was actually admiring how many units away that Trouble Bubble was from at least forcing one of those cleanses early. So there are the 2 on-hit items. Easy analysis at home. If it's a long fight, GenG's got it. Griffin have to burst, but that's before the burst items we noticed in game number 1, the double IE carries are there. So they got to be good about their timings, get a ward lead, I would say, from Griffin. Look at their comp and say they play in narrow areas of the map, say around a Baron or an entrance, really, really reliably. In open areas, more easy for GenG to buy some time.
This is why I'm laughing, because I was just watching Life basically just follow right on the tail of Ruler the entire game this time around. I think that's basically his job, right? Especially when you do have a Vayne. Sometimes the supports like to get unleashed, as Lehends did in game number 1, but you absolutely know that Life knows where his bread is buttered in this game, and he's going to be right next to the Vayne the entire time.
Zach is happily in vision, charging up Elastic Slingshot to get this down, get the mid lane turret down. GenG with Vayne, Nico, Lissandra get the first outer turret in mid. A consequential point with how they want to play out this game. The areas in where Griffin are strong are in the skirmish early game. Didn't happen. And then in Baron setups. Baron setups are much harder right now with the turret lead that GenG has for Griffin than they are for GenG. CuVee hits the side lane and Ryze says, could I get a gank? Yes, with a gank, he can do a lot. Without a gank, he can't do very much. So because of that, all Sword can do is wait for the wave to be pushed in. It keeps stacking up, and it doesn't feel like a bold prediction anymore, Valdez. I think GenG are heavily favored in this game now, and only the nameplates are why Griffin has much of a chance. Whatever the gold lead says, if you got Vayne, Nico, and 3 tanks, or at least 3 champions who can control space, a 900 gold lead is like a 9,000 gold lead on your day.
And as you mentioned before, I mean, Griffin could have just banned Vayne, right? They were on red side. They banned out Kalista. They banned out Tristana. Understandable, but then they banned out LeBlanc. And that's the one that we don't understand. And, well, it's going to be a fight from 2 non-junglers over the Mountain Drake. Who's going to get it in the end? Who has the burst? Looks like it's Ryze as 3 Mountain Drakes go the way of Griffin.
That's what they got. They have to play around Baron. The moment you pause this game, as the Griffin coach, you say, we have to play around Baron. We have 3 Mountain Drakes and a comp that gets picks reliably around Baron. That is our win condition. It is not open team fights. So the battle lines here are really fun to notice. Everyone can see that if you see GenG pulling off the ARAM, that's what they're looking for. If you see Griffin with a control ward lead around Baron, you are so scared as GenG.
You definitely are. Well, on blue side, GenG once again are very much prioritizing with their lead all of the vision around the Baron. They don't want to have Griffin have any of it right now. And all so far. It is just that control ward in the Baron pit that does get cleaned out. Now the fun begins. Can GenG consider going for a similar Baron that they did in game number 1, where they kind of just hop on it? In game number 1, they had triple Ocean, which makes it a little bit easier to sustain even without that traditional tank. But this time they have a Zac and a TP's coming in. Doesn't look like they're going to start it just yet, as it looks like it was just Fly heading back into the lane.
So the answer is yes, but, which is obviously a frustrating answer to give you. But they want to know where Zoe is. If Zoe is low on mana or on a recall, it's possible. She's low on mana. That part is there.
Look at the Nico play in the mid lane. Yep. They're saying it's Ruler Life in mid, but that's not true. It's actually the Nico here pretending to be Vayne. And it looks like now they're going to know about it. The vision comes down. Can Tarzan do it? Yes, he can! As he gets the steal. And a huge taunt comes out from the side of Lehends, but it's not enough damage on the backside. Flashes come out, and Ruler, he's going in. He wants more. Sword does a lot of damage, though. The Trouble Bubble, though, it's going to miss. But Viper has too much health alongside Chovy, and that's the difference this time around. They're able to stop the onslaught, and Griffin gets the Baron.
Such a big steal where the game was. GenG trying to play around the Nico there. Good catch on that one, Valdez, but it's not enough. Needed to get the smite now. Let's watch the replay. You're right, it's the impersonator in the mid lane that makes it so critical. So TP was used in this area. Who knows if it was caught? Tarzan comes in. Tarzan gets the smite. And that means that suddenly GenG have to respect a lot of the Griffin map movements, and then Vayne's under a turret, respecting Griffin's turret taking speed. And that's a problem that might be too much to bear.
Definitely is, and think about all the summoners used in that one. Nico's is down, doesn't have flash. Ruler doesn't have flash or cleanse, neither does Peanut or Life. And now they don't have the Baron, and it looks like maybe Griffin have bought themselves a ticket for a game 3 here. We'll have to wait and see.
With where we think the game is going at 35 minutes, this is a let's break the base Baron. It can't just be gold. Yes, if it's 8,000, well, the only way to get 8,000 is to get a lot of damn turrets, so they have to find a way to get a lot with this Baron, because, again, we see 3 items on Ruler. We know that every further item for Ruler and CuVee should be almost unanswerable in a teamfight scenario, barring a GenG mistake. You can't bet on GenG mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, though, CuVee is going to find Tarzan, who just comes over. Of course, hard to say anything about CuVee. He's pretty far behind in terms of just holding his position near an inner turret when outer turret is down. Some more turret gold to Griffin opens up a very slender gold lead. But how did Griffin even find a way to take the outer mid lane turret with only a minute 20 left on Baron?
You said this had to be a base breaker. Well, so far it's only 1 turret, and can they get a kill on the backside? Sword has Zhonya's. They're going to continue on to this one, though. Pop Blossom does come in, but Sword once again with another Zhonya's comes in, but the rest of the team of GenG makes it into position, and now they want to turn onto Lehends as CuVee and Ruler do a bunch of damage. Chovy's got to be careful here. Tarzan actually ults them all away, gets Fly out of position so he can't ult.
Sometimes the minimap pings mean a lot. It's a very late stay in mid lane and push down the mid lane turret ping. Griffin could have got a free mid lane outer turret, and it was at a standstill. We were talking about how do you even get this with the Baron. Instead, they try to amble down and join Sword through his double stasis. He had, I believe, the perfect timing stopwatch and his Zhonya's, so was able to do it twice. But that should have been time bought to try to get 2 turrets mid lane. Instead, it gets them nothing. And I think that's a very poor shot call from Griffin from behind.
We talked about a bit of desperation from the fans, but you don't want to see it from some of the teams that we do have here. Thankfully, for Griffin at least, it's only an Ocean Drake this time that goes the way of GenG. Next one going to be the Elder. So that's when things get spicy again. And you said it early on in the game, Papa. If it reads 30, 35 minutes, it's going to be happy stuff for GenG, not so much for Griffin.
On paper, and on paper it didn't work in game number 1. Really like Griffin's draft in the late game, had reliable ways to curtail Vayne, and yet you went in at the wrong time and got punished. Now, watch the minimap here. Where the minimap is, for sure, you know, Lissandra only is mid. You get mid lane turret, you get a little chunk on inner turret, and you back away. Instead, they come down to try to help the Rise, who's so far overextended, and they're chasing through the enemy jungle and through narrow chokes where someone like Fly.
By the way.
Exactly. The best case scenario there is you maybe take out Lissandra or the support if they're lingering for too long.
Yeah.
The best case scenario mid lane is you get 2 turrets. It's probably only going to be 1 on the replay, but I think it is just categorically wrong to chase there when you're still staring at a mid lane outer turret at 32 minutes.
Vayne loves when things get dirty, when it's one person charging at her and then the next guy comes in a little bit too late, when things are disjointed. If you have 5 members diving onto her, getting into the back line, then you have a good team fight against Vayne. You don't want to be coming in 1 by 1 trying to save your opponent that got caught by himself.
And
or your teammate, rather.
And then Griffin, what are they like? They're like picks. They're like early game, those things didn't happen, but Ruler just turns on Tarzan.
Here we go again. I mean, he's going to be caught up, and Tarzan just disappears. Peanut looking for more, too. It's going to get Chovy on the top side. Gets put to sleep, but the slow comes in, and this is what we were saying. 1 by 1, the dominoes fall as Griffin don't seem to have an answer for the Vayne. The triple kill already goes the way of Ruler.
And he's just asking, do you want to give me a penta, guys? Do you want to give me a penta? The members of Griffin can only stop the minion wave. Can they just end the game with Peanut's health bar?
They're tanking it. Okay, they need some of these minions. Okay, this is not going to work. Small Zach does come in, and very smartly, Sword and Lehends going to save this one, as the minions will not allow them to push.
Exactly, so no pentakill offered, but the minions being stopped, confirmed. Even with the Mars procs and the health bar, no way to stop him. Sword looking for a straggler. That straggler is not Vayne. And Vayne says, look at the timer, that's a Baron coming.
It's just so weird to see Griffin kind of scrounging here, trying to get some kills and looking a little bit disjointed. This is not what we're used to, as GenG are the ones in full control. They're in so much control now.
They don't have 2 Mountain Drakes, but they have double Rage Blade on hit carries. The Nico was nerfed. It doesn't matter. Baron dies in a half second. And that's all from Tarzan, overrating his tankiness. Yes, you can ult and try to reset things, but that's a conditional play. Lehends gets the memo that Tarzan does not.
This is just where I throw out my hands and I say, what the hell is going on? As certainly some mistakes are made, but you can't afford to make mistakes up against this Vayne comp.
Meanwhile, look at Fly. He holds his ult for Viper on the Lucian. He doesn't blow everything onto the Zinja because they know they don't need it. Listen to the call.
Send wave, go, go, go. After, of course, we got him in nice. As is the standard. Coach trying to keep things calm in the booth, it looks like, as imagine GenG in 9th place staring down the barrel of one team fight to 2-0ing Griffin.
And it happened last year. GRF beat Griffin as well in a game we never saw coming. That was GRF's last series victory before they finally won against the FLICKR Freaks this year, was their win over Griffin. Griffin are falling back into some really questionable territory, and it's around some of their strongest members as well.
You hate to see it, but it's happening right before our eyes. Chovy also not quite able to pop off on the Zoe, not looking like his old self. What can you do when Ruler is this fed? You have to have that 5v5 team fight where you actually find them and take away the DPS. But it might be too little too late.
They can even play multiple lanes, almost impossible with Vayne most of the time with a lack of siege. But Nico is going to train down a turret, no one's near it. How many advantages can Griffin get on just this, and GenG can get, sorry, on just this one push?
Griffin don't even look like they can start a fight. Okay, trouble bubble onto the guy with double cleanse.
And Braum.
What are you going to do? You got to give everything away. The inhibitors are going down. As, okay, the kidnap comes in, and Tarzan has his ult, but down he will go, and look at Ruler in the front line is gonna get 2, and it doesn't look like Griffin will have enough here, as the minions are coming in. Ruler just wants the kills, and I can't believe I'm saying it, but GenG are gonna 2-0 Griffin tonight.
It's a well-deserved victory for GenG, and you can only imagine how much this means to the org, to the players, laughed at every single corner. in 2019. They're able to pick up the victory. It's through the 1v9. And the coolest thing to say about Griffin is they should have seen it coming. They knocked them over the head with it in game number 1.
I know.
And Griffin said, please, sir, can I have some more? That's not how it works, Griffin. If you ask for some more, you just straight up lose. And a famous victory for GenG that might not mean a lot for their playoff aspirations, but if it gets them away from relegations and it gets them out of their 2019 funk, it may have come 2.5 months too late. But man, will they appreciate it. What a well-deserved bow to Lopar.
It tells you two things. It tells you that any team in the LCK on any given day can challenge even the best that we have here. And it also shows you that Griffin are mortal. They are not going to be undefeated in series anymore after today. They're now 12-1. They're not 12-0 anymore. It actually happens. The fans, they can't even believe it.
They thought they were coming in to see their favorite players, bow once, smile once, and that's all they were going to get. They're going to get way more than that. I'm sure we're going to have a pretty feisty interview when we get to that as well. Peanut played his role. He was very much just trying to set up for his carries, but they didn't need top lane Karma and Frostmancy to do it. The Nico comes in after hotfix, no problem. Bow from Peanut. Everyone energized on the side of GenG, and we knew this man could do it in the losses he was doing in solo queue. He is doing it. His team stand up around him, and in Ruler We Trust works for GenG.
It's an insane moment right now to be living in, and as you mentioned before, why not disband the Vayne and just deny this from happening? I suppose they're happy to give the Lissandra again to Fly and the Vayne again to Ruler, who is the obvious MVP once again, as he's going to give us an extra little bow on his way out. But he already showed off and bowed off enough on that Vayne. That was some insane play again.
The interviews today for Ashley Kang on the global side, for the InVen interviews and all the Korean, it's going to be so interesting to get into the mindsets of GenG. They're on a real tear here. This could mean so much, the 2-0. I love the sign that we saw there, which is very much in Ruler We Trust.
Says, Ruler, please carry.
But he was the whole time. That's the crazy thing, Valdez. He was hard carrying the whole season. But it didn't matter because around him, the plans were not perfect. Around him, with his trademark performance, GenG had priority tops. Like CuVee had his best series, just whacking away on the rise, but it was the same matchup again. And the fact that they banned LeBlanc when they could have banned Vayne, we would have been like, really nice, great ban. We wouldn't have even been praising them. It was obvious, right? Or Nico, or Lissandra, and they banned none of them. That's the part where you're just like, Griffin, what the hell are you doing? A really, really questionable draft in game number 2, and Tarzan tries to force here because they were getting split to death. But then guess what? Ruler gets to just kill everyone. This was always going to be the case, but to the nth degree, they couldn't make it work in the early game, and Griffin looked like in game number 2, they left open the picks that GenG had and said, don't worry, we can punish them in the early game. But Valdez, the reason why I said Griffin was overrated by a lot of people is that their early games have been passive since 9.1. They haven't been playing proactive. They have been playing passive. And of course, you can sit there and say, but they can play all those champions. Of course, it's easy. Let's listen to the call here.
달려 너플 라이즈 죽여 라이즈 죽여 라이즈 죽여 나이스 잘했다
You're getting the raws there. You don't need translation of this.
나이스 잘했다
Kill the rise,
잘했다
kill the
진짜
rise.
우리
And then nice.
But Valdez, they looked like a team that weren't practiced and ready to play an early game comp. They weren't ready, and this is why, yes, Griffin are a fantastic team. 12-1 doesn't change that. But to say right now they're going to win MSI, they're the top 1 in the world, they haven't earned that in my eyes. I hope more people give them a chance to rebound and find a way to address some of their passive early games, because teams will be watching this one and say, can we get away with Zach against Griffin? Can we get away with Vayne against Griffin? How much can we get away with in the early game against Griffin? Yes, they are the gods of late game team fighting, but it doesn't really matter how good you are at pressing your buttons. When Vayne and Nico have some bodyguards, there ain't no buttons to be pressed. You already lost Valdez, and that's what happened here to Griffin. And I hope they get the right learnings from this, because you have to say, with how things went in 2018, sometimes they learned, but sometimes they didn't.
You just think about how many series they tried to force Lucian funnel, and you definitely are reminded of that in this series. You just think back to that moment and you tap your head and you're like, oh yeah, Griffin were that team to, you know, just get stuck in their own ways and be overconfident that they were right about this one little thing, and seemed like they thought not banning the Vayne and other picks was the right thing to do. And they tried to draft here for an early game to get ahead of Peanut and all of the greed in their composition, but they couldn't even do that.
They did draft it, they just couldn't play it. They had no threat onto Zach. He was getting bonus camps from the enemy jungle. And what I want people to understand is, and I think people always underestimate this because they just read the question like Griffin are overrated or Griffin are underrated. Griffin are an excellent team, but they're not the finished article. No one needs to be 13 series into an 18 best-of-3 season, and then playoff, and then MSI. The season isn't written today, but Griffin aren't the finished article today, and I like that it was exposed in a way that people can see. No one can now deny it, seeing them lose 2-0, and you can still give them the benefit of the doubt, and they deserve a lot of the benefit of the doubt, but until we see how they bounce back from this and address some of their issues in the early game, they got things to work on, and it's a good thing we don't want anyone done just halfway through March.
It's very true, and we talked about the Rise, the Corki, the Zoe, all these other damage threats that were in the lineup of Griffin, but in the end, turns out that especially when you're fighting like this, and you don't seem to be coming together as a team, you're not going to be able to outdamage the Vayne. You're not going to be able to pick her out in any of these fights, and Griffin, unfortunately, were not able to do any of that. So GenG, say thank you very much. We're going to win with our Vayne comp, and we'll see you next time.
This is a series that meant everything to one team, and arguably not that much to the other. They already beat Sandbox and SKT. You saw them celebrating after what was a best-of-3 victory. But today they come in, and it just means so much for GenG going forward. And for Griffin, you can laugh it off for now. But what if you look back, and this is the start of something that actually does derail their season? I don't think we should assume anything about where LCK is going in terms of the overall victors of the season, and maybe even who will represent the LCK at MSI. Famous victory for GenG. Ruler does it again, and this time he doesn't need the dramatic fall off in the late game. We said wait till 35 minutes. Guess what this graph says? They waited, and they waited pretty gracefully, all things considered.
That's basically the second 30 minutes comes in. It's like, oh, hello, Nico and Vayne are here to play, and we talk about Nico and Vayne. Obviously, Vayne doing a ton of damage. Nico most of the time just split pushing in this one. And nobody on Griffin able to quite reach the level of the Vayne damage. And says, I think it's like 1 million Teemos are cheering for GenG, something like that. That sign that we saw earlier that I was only able to translate half of, the bottom half was like, for some reason, it feels like a dream of a dream, but it feels like GenG are going to win today. And does feel like we're living a dream. All the things came right together for GenG, and they actually, not 2-1, but they 2-0'd Griffin tonight.
And it gives us, as casters and viewers of this league, something as Peanut. We're picking up the MVP here, had a very good performance on Zach in a hard matchup, so I guess that's why the voters voted for him. I think we would have thought Ruler, but can respect the fact that we get to talk to Peanut. For Valdez, now we have a what-if about Griffin. Now we have questions of Griffin that haven't needed to exist previously. And that means that the assumptions that we take moving forward makes every further series more hype, because we can't just plug in Griffin 2-0 every time they play.
It's very true. Makes them look mortal, as I said before. And yeah, it does feel like Ruler kind of got robbed on the MVP of this one. Peanut especially. Some mistakes in this one alongside the miss smite, but I mean, we are going to get to talk to him, so I suppose that's that. And I'm sure a lot of people want to hear from him and his struggles so far on the side of GenG. So either way, we are going to get into that interview right away. So I'm going to hand it over to G-Sun, who will help us out with the translation of Ruler and Peanut's interview.
Thank you very much, guys. This is G-Sun with today's interview translation. And GenG stopped the undefeatable Griffin today. Congratulations, Ruler and Peanut. It was a perfect and fantastic gift for your fans. How do you feel right now, Ruler?
일단
1등 팀을 이긴 것도 너무 기쁘고.
Well, I'm happy that we took down the first place team. But what's more important that our performance was really close to clean, so I'm really happy with that. Peanut, this is your first MVP. We missed you a lot.
저도 여기 자리가 어떤지가 너무 궁금했는데.
I also wondered what this place would look like this MVP interview, so I'm really happy. And especially you got the MVP on the day you took down Griffin. How do you feel right now?
전승을 달리고 있던 팀이라.
Well, Griffin was undefeated and we were on the 9th place, so we actually didn't expect this result, but we did have a bit of a confidence that we can take them down. But this 2-0 clean game, I'm really happy.
네, 그럼요.
Well, I can see Peanut still nervous after this fantastic victory, you know. And today, GenG had the best with shot calls, draft, and everything. So who was the main shot caller today? Well, everyone did. I mean, like, we were trying to focus on one thing at a time, and I think that really worked out fine today. And game 1 and 2 had a very similar draft. Was that prepared for today specifically? Well, it was more like we were trying to go with champions that we were confident with. Well, especially your Vayne. A lot of crowds were cheering for it. I mean, even though she is buffed, but you know, it's a very risky pick, you know. Well, for the champions with weak laning phase, they need a good pilot. Yeah, I mean, the player playing the champion has to be good. That's all I can say. And GenG, you guys kept playing Nico. So what are your thoughts on Nico as a team? On competitive games. It is one of the champions that CuVee prefers, and he's also good at it. And so we tried it in game 1, we got the victory, so there was no reason to change our decision. In game 1, we're curious about the Baron try. We weren't really sure that you guys were able to take that. So whose call was that? We all 5 had the same decision that if we just try Baron and open team fight, we knew that we were going to win. But Nocturne came in quite early, so we were able to take him down and also Baron. That was more like a very perfect team fight. Did you see the good angle? I mean, you just have to mind that we had a good draft, so we were able to win the team fight. So we have this highlight ready here. You had another quadra kill, so let's go through the replay. You were doing so much damage. What was going on over there? Well, actually Fly got cut out, so I thought it was a bit dangerous, but actually Griffin players were a bit coming in too much, so we were able to win. I'm sorry, says Ruler. Well, I wasn't really paying attention to the kills. I just knew that I just wanted to win that fight. Maybe some of the fans was a bit worried about that mic check to the right. Well, after the game, well, I thought that there can be a mic check revealed, but you know, I think that was a good one. Moving on to game 2, Peanut. It was Zach versus Sinjao, which is a very hard matchup for Zach. So, how did you plan for your jungling path? Well, I asked CuVee to act like he leashed for blue, and I actually went for red by myself. Well, I'm not sure what the Griffin players said, but it was a good start for me because I was able to take camp all the I was able to pick up all the jungling camp in my jungle. I think you also had a good synergy with Nico. What's your thoughts about it? We had good CCs. I mean, it was more like CuVee letting me to camp during the early game. He was doing a lot of work for me. But it was a bit unlucky because you guys were only able to pick up the win rate. Does that happen to you a lot? I always tell my coaching staff that I'm also unlucky with the Scuttle Trap as well, because during the scrims I have good luck with it, but in the competitive games it goes bad. I don't know why. So we have another replay for you, Peanut. So this is almost the end of the game here. So you were actually zoning out Zoe, whose call was that? Well, I knew that Sinja would be down so easily, so I was keeping my eyes on Zoe. But other players actually told me to back up in the mid lane. Whose call was that? Is that Ruler? Yes, it was. Well, I mean, in the end, it all worked out fine. I mean, all the players in the mid lane and also you in the side lane were doing so well in that team fight. But today, GenG was awesome. I mean, I cannot just stop being so amazed by your plays. So how are you going to prepare for your upcoming series? I mean, it's gonna be another exciting one. Since we took down the first place team, if we practice hard and prepare a lot, I'm sure that we're gonna get another victory. And Peanut, I hope to see you again on the MVP interview. How are you going to prepare for your upcoming series? I think I had some chances of picking up some MVPs, but Ruler took it away from me. So I hope I can perform well in our upcoming series as well. So I'm going to do my best to pick up another MVP in the future. It's really sad to say goodbye to GenG players because it was so exciting game today. So thank you very much for today's interview, Ruler and Peanut. And we'll be looking forward to seeing GenG coming back from today's today's victory. So this will be the end of the interview, and I'm gonna pass it back to our casters.
Thank you, Ji-sun, as always, and I caught that guy in the audience that had that U greater than KR sign, and I mean, Griffin just lost to GenG, so
he's more right than he was when he made the sign. So that's a pretty good sign for the sign, right? So
it's a good sign.
What does today mean? What is the sign of this victory herald in the future? We don't know, but Griffin have things to work on that we can evaluate, and it's been hard, right? They were the A+ student where you're like, I mean, there's no more marks than 100%.
Yeah.
But I was over there being like, maybe we should change the rubric. There's some problems.
It's like the last time they failed the test, they stayed up until 4 a.m. playing League of Legends, and they did it again this time. And we're like, what did you think would happen the second time? You're going to fail the test again. And they did. It's kind of sad to watch at the same time, but I mean, you got to give props to Rulers and the guys over at GenG. They found the weakness, they drafted it well, and they played it well, and they absolutely deserve the wins.
According to this series, you can get away with a lot against Griffin. And even their famous late game team fighting won't be enough if you're greedy enough. So is greed good enough to take down Griffin reliably? We can't know. Was it enough today? The answer is yes. Very nice victory by GenG, and it also means the highly competitive race to get the hell away from last place is on, Valdez. GenG now are a series clear of KT Rolster, but KT have a series in hand, so yeah, who's going to be joining Jin Air in relegations? Almost as hot a question as who's going to be top 5 as the season ends.
Yeah, I was just looking at GenG's wins. They've defeated Jin Air twice, they defeated KT once, and then Griffin 2-0. You know, say what you will, seems kind of all over the place, but they get the win.
Telecom War in 45 minutes or so, guys, so please do join us. A long break after a GenG victory.
GenG take the 2-0. What could happen in the Telecom? We'll have to wait and see. Join us in a bit.
You take me higher when I feel low. Make my world brighter when I'm alone. I keep on rolling, but with your fuel, you're like my my gasoline that makes my dream come true. This is the beginning. Together we'll be winning. With you I'm a savage. Make my sorrow silly. Cause with you I'm feeling feather-light. Light like a feather, white like the wind. I fly together to where we ever been. You taught me loving without all the bling. You're all I need. I'm feeling feather-light.